that would help benefit us towards getting, not stuck in what's going in the chaos. He was like, listen, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it to continue on.
A rough time, but just personally, I tried to keep to the same schedule that I had while I was at college. So at each class time, even if it was just a recorded class, I would still kind of like attend that class by myself just to keep myself accountable.
I had some people that I talked to on Discord. I had some people that I talked to on Slack. I had some people that I talked to through via Google Chat group, and sometimes it was just through the Zoom meetings that we had. We used the chat, or we could just like, hey, let's talk about this after the Zoom meeting.
This is how I do my things. We just, Sam is recording, sweet. Sam and Alex are still here for some tech help. I'm in a bunker somewhere, actually in a CC Esports game room playing guest this morning while Mr. Mike Jacobs is going to be hosting. He is, what's your title? I don't know anybody's title. What's your title?
That's okay. Career and Activities Coordinator here at Northwest.
So you have become a de facto face of the college, right? Like being out there doing Zoom recordings for scholarships, awarding stuff like that, some learner town halls. So I thought it'd be a great opportunity, to let people look at and listen to somebody else other than me for a while today. And you are going to be leading a learner roundtable panel discussion where, in academia, we make a lot of decisions for our learners, and I don't know that we're always listening to our learners. So part of the design thinking process that we talked about on Monday, part of the whole communication strategy, things that we're looking at doing going forward here. Oh, that's weird. I can see myself on Tristan's monitor, so it's distracting. He's way over there though. Sorry, squirrel. I think it's important for us to listen to our learners, and learners, it's also important for you to have a voice in this as we move forward, but not just because of what's happening, as a result of COVID, but just in general, right? You come into our environments in academia every year with new perspectives, new ideas, and empowering you to share and move forward with those ideas. I think that's part of our responsibility. So that's kind of, I guess, laying the groundwork for today. This will be recorded and shared. So I'm asking you to speak freely, but also let's keep names. Let's not use specific names for people. Let's talk more about the broader situations, I think, if that makes sense. But again, permission to speak freely, because that's what we need to hear.
Cool.
And
Thanks,
with
Mike.
that, I'll turn it over to Jacobs.
Yeah, appreciate it. You set it up perfectly. That was the first thing that I wrote down and kind of preparing for today was, we think we did it right. All right. So as, folks that are in leadership at the college and our other respective guests and school districts, a lot of the time, because of the timing of everything, we had to make some really quick decisions and, do that pivoting to try to present things that we're still going to create some continuity with your academic semester, your learning, your goals and everything. And so this is a great opportunity for us to kind of almost even debrief about the second half of our spring semester, the second half of the school year for those of you that are K-12. And so a lot of us that have been kind of in leadership and decision-making roles have really tried to reach out and make that communication accessible. One of the things that we did specifically at Northwest State, and I'm sure a lot of other organizations, you kind of have your professional Zoom meetings where you connect and share ideas and brainstorm. We took that a step further and we created an event called Campus Conversations, and it's a scheduled Monday night, 6 p.m. We invite all of our learners. I host the show. I have kind of a loose agenda, but it's really an opportunity for our students to kind of say, hey, here's what I'm experiencing. This is my frustration. I tried this and it didn't work. Who do I talk to about fill in the blank. So that's been pretty successful. It's been really nice for me because we get connected with a different set of students than we would normally see here on campus. So again, welcome and thank you to everyone who's joining us this morning. So as we kind of move forward with listening to learners, I guess we'll just open it up. What when this all happened, it's middle of March. Some of you might have been on spring break, actually on vacation. What was your feeling or your sense? Were you expecting it to go this long? Just kind of like thinking about that initial response from your perspective. So I guess you're able to unmute yourself and kind of chime in, but what were those initial thoughts coming from our learners about what was going on?
And I think too, should we have them introduce themselves a little bit so we know who the group is?
Sure. If you come in, who you are, where you're from, kind of what your role is, whether it's a student or a leader or something.
You may have to call on people.
Yeah, I know. We do
Hey,
have
Lucy, all right.
Hi, good morning. My name is Lucy. I'm a second year student, and it was a struggle with the COVID-19 transition that we did online. I did not actually look forward to it, but it was a learning process, and I really do like to thank the staff and faculty for really stepping up and making sure that there was communication. It was kind of rocky in the beginning, but it was a learning process for all of us, so I really do appreciate that.
What were some of the first kind of forms of communication? I guess that's really a big question that a lot of us that have the messages to share. That's one of the things that we're really trying to figure out is what is the most effective and efficient way to get our message to you as students. I could probably say that, we may have bombarded you, at least from Northwest State's perspective, we may have bombarded you with a lot of emails, for example. And so, was that frustrating, confusing? Where were you getting some of your initial information and feedback about what was kind of happening back in mid-March and early April?
So it did start out with a lot of emails. I also took the initiative to contact my instructors via email and Sakai. I did wait because I kind of figured that a lot of people were still on spring break and also having to get together information for us. But it was overwhelming in the beginning with the emails, but I just read them and took them as they came and then processed them. It got better, like as communication started up again. And I think just checking my email daily in the mornings and then checking Sakai, like the announcements, just at least once in the morning, in the lunchtime, and then in the evening was helpful. Just at a glance, so that did help a lot too.
Great. Other student experiences?
Hi, my name is Latoya, and I am a first-year student returning. So for me, I hadn't been to college since 1995, and things were a lot different. So I was really concerned with the communication and how I was going to do. My classes were hybrid classes, so a lot of that had been different since 1995. And what I did notice is that I was able to communicate with my instructor through text or email. He gave us both his number and email address. And so it was, I really feel like Clark State did everything to make me successful. I had contact with my counselor. He was just emailing just to check up on me. And as far as the instructor, we also had the Zoom meetings for our classes. The only thing that was a little bit hard were our hands-on labs, and not having those was a little hard. However, we did the extra lab simulations to kind of replace some of those. So I I actually think the transition was pretty smooth, especially for someone like me.
Okay. How did Clark State communicate with you primarily? Was it initially email,
Yes.
as far as like what was going on? Okay.
Yes.
And then do you use any other like sources of social media to get updated or current information from the school?
So I was kind of new to this whole social media platform. As of like 2 years, I really just didn't get on there very much. And so I still don't really use it a whole lot. It's primarily the emails that I get most of the information.
Okay.
And Clark State's websites.
Okay. Thanks, LaToya. That's great information, and it's kind of good to hear. I know that, on a leadership standpoint, from, presidents and cabinet level, they're meeting with all the other community colleges throughout the state on a really regular basis. So I think they all tried to create similar experiences based on what we thought was the best thing to do to get that information out. I guess I'd like to hear from students who maybe do tend to get some of their information and their facts maybe from social media platforms. I don't know if are folks going to like, your college's Facebook page to get updates. Are you going to their website, or are you really just relying on that email, or you're just hoping that somebody calls you? As Vanderpool said, I have everybody's names in front of me. I guess I really could start calling people out, but.
I did check the website also. I don't really use social media like as often to communicate, I guess, academically. But I just recently joined up on the NSCC web or Facebook page. And I found some information on there just recently that I could look into in the future.
Good deal. So as the semester kind of evolved, as far as the spring semester is concerned, obviously, everyone was starting to think about, okay, well, what's going to happen summer? What's going to happen in fall? As students, do you feel like you have a pretty good understanding of kind of what's expected coming up for this fall semester? I guess I'll talk about Northwest State, but for your other respective schools, do you feel like you have a plan, or are you waiting for some firm answers from someone before you decide to enroll? Or I guess, where are you at from as far as your plans are looking at the fall semester with regard to classes and things?
Hi, I'm KJ.
Hi, KJ.
Hi, I go to Northwest. I'm one of Vanderpool's people. Vanderpool has done a really good job in keeping all of his students in the loop since day one.
She's a plant, by the way.
Huh?
I know.
Full disclosure, she's a plant.
I'm not a plant. I don't have roots. I'm just kidding. But when it came to social media, we always kept up on Slack, the app. That was our way of communicating. And on top of it, we did have the school emails and stuff. And so then whenever it came to enrolling for the summer and fall, he had us all basically prepared to do that, since he has his own little tricks up his sleeve that will help us, that will help benefit us towards getting, not stuck in what's going in the chaos. He was like, listen, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it to continue on. And so we still all had our individual meetups to discuss what we should do for the fall. And it really it didn't feel different. So I really appreciated it. And I can say for my class that we felt confident going into signing up for the fall without really having any worries.
Any students out there that maybe do feel a little, you know, it's okay to admit this. This is a safe space, but that you do feel a little lost or you're a little uneasy about the fall. You know, what are some of those concerns? Because as I'm looking through our guest list, we have a lot of people that can help give you some support and some direction.
Well, and I think too, Mike, even us faculty are kind of a little nervous about what the fall's going to look like, and that's part of the conversation that we're going to have today. So whatever your concerns are, learners, like, let us know right now, because that's conversation we're going to continue having today, and design towards a better solution for all of us.
So I haven't really started yet at Northwest State. I'm a CCP student, but I start this fall. But with most of my classes, I've already started to schedule them, but for our high school stuff, we don't really get around to like August to get our classes.
Okay.
So for stuff like that, it's been kind of a mess, because getting books from this school, like my high school, for the lending of the books for the college classes, we don't really know what's happening yet. But I would say overall for this fall, like upcoming college classes, I feel more confident about knowing what's going on with that than I do with my high school classes.
Okay.
Mike, has Northwest State announced for sure what they're going to be doing in the fall? And I wonder what that experience is across, with the different institutions that these students are at.
Yeah. We are, for the summer semester, we are offering all of our classes online, but they're kind of modified versions of some online. And then fall, we have every intention of being back and having students on campus. We have on-campus classes that are on the schedule that students can sign up for. Now, obviously, we are taking the precautions with social distancing, capacity. I'm actually part of a group that's kind of researching that now, so that's what I'll get to do after we leave our show here in another half hour or so. But we are setting up our classrooms to accommodate face-to-face. It's going to be limited. It's going to look a little different. But because we have some time and we're not just finding out like in March, one day you're here and the next day you've got to figure it all out. We've got some time now to put some things in order that are going to make the most sense, but also create an effective learning space for our students. That's kind of the key. So we obviously have some classes. I know LaToya had mentioned classes that have labs associated with them. So we're looking at those and figuring out some options on how to offer hands-on labs with responsible social distancing. So I know we have some other folks that are here, and before I kick it over to them, I do want to say to students, to echo something that Mike Vanderpool said, we're figuring all of this out too. So if you have some nervousness and some apprehension about what it's going to look like and am I going to be able to figure out the technology, I have those same concerns and headaches and worries. I'm getting better because I've been practicing, but we are really honestly all going through this at the same time. So I kind of wanted to let you know that, just to help you understand that we don't know all of this technology inside and out. We're still learning it too. So, your patience and understanding that, I think is going to help your comfort level too when you come into it, because your faculty are trying to adjust. So anyway, any other comments on fall semester? I know, Dan, you flipped your camera on. I don't know if there's anything else that I maybe missed with regard to what fall's going to look like for our learners.
Yeah, Mike, I think all I can add is, and you kind of maybe alluded to it, but we, back in March when we shifted everything, we pulled the plug, put everything on remote. But through all that, I think we learned a lot of different mechanisms to do classes. We've learned new communication styles. We've learned a lot. I think what we are looking forward to.
You want to roll up your shades? Yeah. Okay.
I think what we're looking forward to in the fall is, I think everybody, although, everybody's afraid of the unknown, and there's obviously a big unknown in the fall. We don't know which direction it's going to go. But I think that the one thing that we do know is that we can handle it no matter where we end up in the fall. So I think we've got, full intention to do face-to-face, and we understand kind of the protocols now, the distancing and those type of things. So I think that if I could share anything, I would say we're confident in having a good, successful fall semester. We might not know exactly what it looks like, but we know we've got option A, B, and C. And I can tell you, I know that the faculty and the deans at Northwest right now, they've got their contingency plans in development. So in other words, if everything's back to normal, we're going to take this path. If we're all the way back to where we were in March, we've got this path, and we've got some in between areas as well. So I think all of that's laid out. And so again, it's, I know that we have some unknown out there, but if I could provide some sense of security, we don't know where we're, how it's going to be, but we've got plans for all different scenarios, I guess, if that makes any sense. So I think that's the approach we're taking for the fall, is having multiple plans, multiple scenarios, so that we can ensure that it's a good experience no matter what happens.
Great. So students, other concerns? Is there a particular class that you've signed up for and you're thinking, I have no idea how are they going to do this, or how am I going to learn this, or how am I going to teach this? Are you thinking about that now? And if you are, that's fine. Maybe we can help talk you through it.
I'm currently registered for calculus.
Okay.
And if it's not a face-to-face class, like if it's forced to convert over to online, I'll probably end up happening to drop it because I will not be able to learn calculus online. I had a rough time learning with my 4 classes in the spring, and I talked to Dan a lot while this is going on. I talked to Mike a lot. They helped me out with a lot of the issues I had. And I ended up having to withdraw from a different class because the face-to-face part was the only thing keeping me in it and learning it. So if that part goes away, I would lose the before class part talking to the instructor, the after class talking to the instructor, and after class working with my classmates trying to understand what we all didn't understand.
Sure.
If that makes sense to you guys, I learn a lot better with other people instead of online through like voice calls.
Yep. And I appreciate you bringing that up, because I think a lot of students may have some of those similar feelings, and you either don't want to maybe admit to it, but like you said, Hunter, because you were able to voice that concern, you were able to get some help from a couple of folks on campus to kind of help you through and figure out what your best next steps were. And so I think that's what's really important for all of our learners. If the second you feel a little twinge that, boy, I don't know if this is going to be a comfortable experience, connect with your instructor, certainly connect with your academic advisor. Obviously, you can connect with folks like me and other people that are in learner services. We're not going to try to talk you into something that you really genuinely don't feel comfortable doing, but we're certainly going to reassure you and give you all the support that we can to help you realize that you could and do that.
Just a minute, baby.
Oh.
Can you hear me?
Sure can, Ann.
Hey, I'm driving. We pulled into McDonald's, my granddaughter and I, but I have something to say about that because I've been tutoring online, and Dan Light has been so great about tutoring with the math part. And I don't know if Sherry's on here or not this morning, but what I wanted to say was for anybody taking an online course, even a math or science, like he's talking about a calculus class, the tutoring lab will set up, just like they would normally do, Zoom appointments with you to kind of help. And if you wanted to, you could set up, let's say 2 a week, where you were going to spend half an hour, 40 minutes with your tutor online to help you through any of those classes. But I know especially Dan talks about calculus and all that. I don't tutor that, but he does. And it's, you talk about, it's not always easy just listening. Some of us don't take instruction well just by hearing it. We need more. and I would include myself in that group. But I wanted to mention that our tutoring and success center with Sherry Ricks will set that up with anybody who has to take like a calculus online class. It'd be like you take your class online, but then you regularly meet on Monday and Wednesday at a certain time with Dan face to face on a Zoom, and he will walk you through it, and he's just excellent. And I wanted to throw my 2 cents in here.
Nope, I'm really glad that you did, Anne. I was hoping that someone other than me would bring up tutoring and those options as well. So, and again, for those of you that are at other institutions, please feel free to share maybe what your academic support services has done with you, and then I can talk a little bit about what Northwest State is doing for our students as well. I don't know if anybody had any experience there. Okay, that's fine. I'm sorry, Dan, you were getting ready to say something.
Yeah, I know at North Central, we brought in, I believe it was almost a third more people in the tutoring center to handle the increase in the virtual load so that we could schedule those remote Zoom one-on-one tutoring sessions and continue that one-on-one student interaction as needed. We've made that commitment, and I believe we're going to retain that going into fall, depending on which way we need to maneuver.
Great. Anyone else from another institution, even as a student at another institution, maybe you didn't take advantage of that academic support, but are you aware that that's out there, and what are they doing to be able to offer tutoring in a remote environment? I didn't know if you knew any of that.
Well, over at Stryker, we don't really have much of a tutoring place. It's just kind of like, since we're such a small school, we just have people can go to, they just go to their teachers whenever they set up a meeting or something. But what we did for the quarantine, we just kind of had like they wouldn't let all the teachers obviously in the building at once. So each teacher would get a certain day where they could, set up their own Zoom meeting or something like that, just for a certain grade level. And since, my class alone probably had like 20 people this year, it just wasn't really overloaded for them. But when it comes to like doing face-to-face, I agree with Hunter completely, because I don't do well at all when it comes to online learning. I do a lot better when it comes to, going face-to-face and just having a hands-on, and I don't really know why, but it's just it's just a lot easier.
Sure.
Hey, Mike.
Yeah, Dan.
I was gonna see if I could maybe jump in on and come back to Hunter and any of the students. Actually, I would just ask, because sometimes I think the struggle isn't as much an academic struggle as trying to kind of find the time and the schedule and the pace. I think a lot of times it helps when students have a place to go, if that, for lack of better terms. In other words, I know I need to be in class at this time. And I also know through this, we had several students that, that got kind of put online, and so they're working from home, but at the same time now their kids are home from school, and they're trying to homeschool at the same time, and they're trying to fit homeschooling in, and they're trying to fit the class in that they're taking, and they don't get that breakaway, for lack of better terms. In other words, they're kind of stuck in the home routine and not able to put themselves in their classes routine. And I don't know if any of the students out there, if you've had that kind of sense or that feeling, trying to balance life, or maybe your changes in life with the classes. And I think sometimes the going to class sometimes helps with that. But I don't know, and I guess I'll pick on Hunter. I don't know if that's part of the thing that helps, is actually being in the class and kind of having some schedule or some type of thing. So I would just kind of put that out and ask if students had any of those experiences, trying to balance other things, if that makes a difference online compared to face-to-face.
Oh yeah. Having the forced schedule of class starts at 8 a.m. If you're not there, you're missing the lesson, is really big, especially when this whole thing started after spring break, so everyone is already kind of relaxed, and just kind of, it's whatever. I'll look at it next week. And then next week was, oh yeah, you're not going back to college. And then that just kept extending. So whatever structure you had kind of disintegrated, and from the college at least. And then when, say, like for my example, I ended up losing my job, so that schedule got disintegrated as well. And then then my life became, okay, I need to get a hold of unemployment, who just now on Sunday got back to me and finally got their crap together. And working through that and working with my family, everyone was stressing out. It was just a big stress ball that had to get unwound. If you guys have ever seen Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, that ball of the ball of the Christmas lights, it was like that. Getting it all unknotted at the very end felt really good, but the process getting there was not good. If you understand my meaning.
Yeah, 100%, Hunter, and
it was a struggle, but we got it.
I definitely think that was an issue for myself, because my job went to working remote from home. And then I had a 9-year-old daughter who also had to, I had to homeschool, and she had the Zoom meetings with her teacher. And then, going to school kind of gave me that break. And it allowed me to be able to communicate with other students and see their perspective on things. And so I think it was a little hard to balance all of those, as just being in the home all the time.
I had a different little thing. So before quarantine, before COVID, I worked 2 different jobs, and then I was constantly around campus trying to do whatever I could to help. I attended a lot of events, and having my schedule be that busy is what kept me in check. So we went on spring break, which was great. I had a lot of personal things happen. So I kind of took a break from school and stuff anyway. So COVID kind of helped in that aspect, because for me, I was going through a lot at the time, and having that extra break from school did help. But then whenever it came to coming back to school, to going back to classes, it was a bit of a change because of the fact that I didn't have that I need to go to school to learn properly, because I am just like what seems to be the majority of the people on here. I would rather learn in person. I would rather have that face-to-face conversation in order to properly learn. But I will say, having that relationship with your instructor, with whoever it is, just communicating to them saying, hey, I just want you to know, I feel like I'm going to struggle because of the fact that I am a in-person, not online learner. So I already had that with my instructor, and I think that benefited a lot. And then on top of it, so my one job was shut down. I was a server at a restaurant. That was shut down, obviously. And then my other job was, I'm a factory worker, and my job was essential. And so I still had work on top of schooling. So my life was semi-normal, but again, just going through all the transitions of COVID, what was going on in my life, just all that in general did clash at one point. But I can say I did reach out to people who I needed to, and I did get that help. So I really do think that it all depends on who you talk to, and I really do think it depends on how you want to look at it. If you go in with that negative attitude saying, I'm going to fail, I hate to say it, but you most likely are. You need to take that initiative to get out there, to talk. And I will say, like, it helps a lot. That's it.
I'd like to kind of pose a bit of a question for those that struggle with the online learning that they were kind of thrown into. What if, hypothetically, classes remain the same in the sense that you were still in your house, but your Zoom meetings were held at the structured time that your classes would normally be? So your teacher would say your class was from 8 to 9, your instructors would be online from 8 to 9 and hold a like a video session class at that time, how would that have helped or not helped at all?
One of my classes actually did that, and it helped a lot. It was it was it was a static site class. It was let me find the book real quick.
Fluid mechanics is what it was, Hunter.
Yeah, I can't believe I couldn't remember that. It was fluid mechanics transitioning to an online class, and the instructor for that class got to work real quickly setting up communication and meetings and all kinds of fail safes for that class because of the kind of stuff that goes into it. If any of you've taken statics and strengths or fluid dynamics or mechanics, you'll know what I'm talking about. It is a lengthy process to get the homework done, and not having teacher assistants like face to face is it's a struggle. It's not fun. But once everything got set up, it took him like maybe a week. We had the weekly Zoom calls for class, and then he had Zoom office hours on it was on Google Hangouts. He had a set time from like 10 to 2 where he was on the call and waiting for people to join in if they had any questions, pretty much. And that helped out very, very much so.
Yeah, I'd like to hop on that and actually mention something about how important it is for instructors to be organized during something like this, because our instructor for that class, I was in that too, he was very much the type that had a folder for every single class that he had. Everything's in like alphabetical order. Everything is like it's organized. And he was the first teacher that reached out to me, to like our student body, basically like our class personally, and was like, hey, just so you guys know, we're working on a solution for this, and that you should have a schedule for my class specifically by this day. And then he went through and delivered for that. Where for other classes of mine, I have a teacher that there was an assignment that was due at the end of our what turned into an extended spring break, and either something was miscommunicated to him or we were miscommunicated to or something, where it was like he still expected us to get that turned into him after we were told by the college that we won't have any assignments until the following week. So I personally reached out to my advisor, and he said that he would take care of it, talk to the dean, which was actually coincidentally the same teacher from that class, the previous class, and it was all taken care of. And it was just, it's the difference between the two, an organized and a disorganized teacher, is completely amazing.
Yeah, I can testify. I had different professors. I had a professor that didn't really say anything until a month after the spring break happened, but like he did set up calls at that point, and they were daily. They weren't daily, but they were in place of the actual class time. But I was unable to make them because my sister was taking ACT classes, and our internet can only handle one Zoom meeting at a time. So hers kind of overrid it, and I emailed him that, and he did get back to me eventually on that and said he could set up meetings. But at that point, I was so far behind, it didn't really matter.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Like, I like having the layered, structured like classes, Zoom meetings, everything like that. But the reason I'm even here at the college right now doing this is because my internet connection can't even handle one Zoom meeting, and there's 4 of us at the house that have to do them constantly, and it just kind of leaves a big struggle, because then if you have like the one way my high school said that because the governor's kind of doing like, thinking, hey, we might do 1 or 2 days at school, 1 or 2 days with Zoom meetings. They mentioned something about, if you don't have the internet connection, you can go sit at the high school. But the difficult thing with that is if you put 4 kids in a van with Zoom meetings, it'll just create a bunch of chaos, and then nobody's going to have any idea what's going on in their own classes. And I'd say I did pretty okay with most of my classes, but math is the biggest thing I have a struggle with. And when it comes to math, I need to actually like, have the teacher there. They can show me what I'm doing, what they're doing. It just makes it so much easier.
So I also experienced a couple classes that were, well, most of my classes were well organized and communication was swift with a lot of my instructors. I did have a class where it was slightly more complicated, and a lot of fellow students and I started to communicate with each other. The one thing that I stressed with my fellow students was follow the syllabus. Like a lot of us forget that the syllabus is there as a guide. There was some work that was cut off and some of us did it and some of us didn't, but following the syllabus helped a lot, keeping that structure, following the directions of just keeping up with the due dates. Even though they changed, I was able to turn in most of my work, if not on time, early. But communicating with fellow students helped a lot, and keeping up with them through Zoom meetings, social media. I didn't utilize the tutoring center as much as I would have liked, but again, I followed the syllabus. That is a structured instruction that we always get in the beginning of classes, and it helped a lot.
Great conversation. Thank you all for sharing. And again, I don't know that I necessarily have like answers, but the theme that really the 2 words that I wrote down over the last 20 minutes that everybody was talking was structure and routine. And so I understand that, as a traditional online learner, that was one of the reasons I avoided taking online classes forever for graduate work, is because I know that I need that structure. I know that I need that routine. Like me, Mike Jacobs, I am not good with that. Just, well, you got a week to do it and you'll figure it out kind of thing. But what I think is really important to know, and one thing that Dan mentioned at the beginning, is we obviously had to adapt pretty quickly using this technology, but in doing so, we've learned that there are ways that, even with an online or a face-to-face class, we can still utilize teleconferencing and remote learning and still be effective for our learners. I want to thank Anne again for bringing up our tutoring. We do have scheduled Zoom tutoring sessions that are available. And I believe it's going to start next week on June 8th. Maybe Anne can correct me if that date's wrong. But I think on our first day of class, it might be the week after, it might be the 15th, because we have some math classes that are already going. But you are able to Zoom in. Your tutor can share their screen, do the whiteboard, and actually do math problems and equations and everything. So you can interact that way. I know it's not a piece of paper and a pen, and they're not right here over your shoulder, but we are really trying to make the technology work for us and create an environment that's as close to being face-to-face as possible. And I think we're only going to see that grow. And I think, again, even whatever normal looks like, when things do get back to normal, let's just call it, a year from now, whatever that is, I would imagine that department meetings and tutoring sessions and even things that I do with student activities, I'm still going to have a teleconferencing element to that. And I think a lot of us are, because we've realized what this technology can actually do. Once you sort of get over the hump and the anxiety of, oh gosh, I didn't know what Zoom was 3 months ago. I really didn't. And now I'm hosting a show. So it's totally possible. It's very doable. You just need some patience and an open mind. So, but yeah, structure and routine. I guess I have some things to say, but this is about you as learners. For those of you who like online learning and how have you created your own structure and your own routine to make sure that you do get that stuff done when you don't have a specific class time? So from learners who, aren't completely maybe anti-online learning, what's your experience and how do you structure and create a routine for yourself? No one likes online learning.
I'm gonna call on somebody. Ariel.
Dinah was trying to talk. She was muted.
Oh, Dinah, then Ariel. Ariel has to go. She promised me she would say something today.
Go for it, Dinah.
Hi, I'm Dinah. I'm from Ohio State University. And for me, my online classes actually haven't been that bad just because they've kind of maintained the same structure that they would have if we were in person. So a lot of like synchronous classes. And so you have that like face-to-face interaction with your professor still. I did struggle a lot because I did have a lab class, and so that was definitely difficult to switch over to online, as well as that professor probably sent me a total of 5 emails over the course of like the quarantine. So that was definitely a rough time, but just personally, I tried to keep to the same schedule that I had while I was at college. So at each class time, even if it was just a recorded class, I would still kind of like attend that class by myself just to keep myself accountable.
Great. Thank you, Dinah.
All right. Well, hello. My name is Ariel. I graduated from the VCGD program in December of 2018, and I started going to Huntington University in Indiana in the fall of 2019. And so we finished Huntington. They started their whole COVID learning after our spring break. It was very stressful those first couple weeks because we lived in dorms there, so they wanted us moved out by the end of March while also figuring out online learning. And I'm a graphic design major, and so I was taking 3 studio art classes, which were blocks of like almost 4 hours of class time in the studio. There was a painting class, a drawing class, and a 3D design class. And so trying to figure out how to bring all of my art supplies home, create a studio space in my house to do all of my end of year projects while also moving an entire dorm back into my house was a real struggle. And so what I did for myself once I kind of got situated was create a schedule, like starting at 10 in the morning until 4 at night, just kind of blocking out times throughout the day on times that I would attend my Zoom meeting class, and then times that I would work on projects or work on my other classes, and just kind of like force myself to sit down and do this work when it was very challenging to like not be in the mindset of, oh, I'll just do it, later, or I can just do it tomorrow, but actually like sticking to the routine and doing basically like the same thing every day like I did back in Indiana.
Great. Thanks, Ariel. Now, obviously, every student has a different life circumstance. For some folks, it may be easy to just, okay, well, I'll just keep my same routine. But then we have other learners, that found themselves also having to manage their own kids' schoolwork. And so, to say, hey, here's 4 hours of time that I'm just going to dedicate to my homework and expect that no one's going to bother me. Yeah, I get it. That's challenging. But I think it's really important that as you look toward not only the summer semester in which you're enrolled, but certainly the fall, things are going to change and get adjusted over the next couple of months also. But go into that mindset, who I think it was KJ that said, your attitude as you kind of approach this is really going to be a big determining factor in your success too. Because if you go in thinking, yeah, this is stupid, I can't believe they're making me do it this way, I'm never gonna figure this out. Yeah, it's probably going to be harder for you to figure that out. But if you go into it and approach it from a standpoint that, okay, this is going to be a challenge, but I know that there is support out there and I'm going to ask for that help, you're going to be so much better off. So just kind of keep that in mind. Sorry to turn that into a dad moment for all of you learners, even if you are my age, but that's kind of how I would encourage you to look at that too. But think about structure and routine and how you can, as much as possible, create some structure and routine around what those expectations are from your classes and your instructors.
Do we have any students that had like outside projects, like they were being outsourced to a company or something like that, where they were working outside of the school but still had to be in a location where they were still affected by the COVID-19 shutdown? Because I know I personally I was working with Matsu, Ohio, like over in Edgerton. And when our school shut down, they still didn't shut down for another couple of weeks. So we still weren't able to go over there just because that was the school protocol now. The
So you're
factory
talking
was
like
still
a
open.
like a co-op experience or like an
Kind of,
externship,
yeah.
kind of like that. Okay.
Where, well, one of that company specifically went through Brad and was like, hey, can you find a group of students to work on this project for us? And we just happened to be the group of students that did it, and we were basically cut off from all of our resources over there and had to cut our project a little short.
We had to design a pipe system after one visit.
Yeah, it was insane.
Any other students have any experience? I don't know if we have anybody that was maybe doing clinicals or externship even through healthcare, and how did that go? I don't know if we have any healthcare students on here or any nursing students.
I know I was not taking any co-ops or anything like that during COVID, but I can say it did put a damper on my future plans. I was supposed to do like 2 or 3 different co-ops before, and I was in line for an internship, and I had my whole thing figured out, and I was really excited. And then COVID happened, and now everything's up in the air. I haven't heard from anyone, and I'm very it's scary because that's what I was depending on to help me move forward in my education, in my learning experience. So it is a bit frustrating. So I can only imagine the people who were doing that, like building a pipeline after one visit. I like lost a lot of hair just from hearing that. It made me very stressed. And so I'm curious onto how each school, specifically Northwest, is planning on doing co-ops or planning on how they want to go about doing those for the fall. Yeah.
That's kind of the question that I was asking indirectly, KJ.
Got to be more direct, Paige. No, you're good. I actually have not been a part of any. I mean, I could make up an answer that's probably pretty close, but I might actually defer that. I don't know if Dan, if you might want to chip in, or if anybody else from the faculty side is aware of about how we might be doing those student experiences in the fall. Obviously specific with our STEM division, it sounds like that's where our questions are coming from, but even how is that going to look with our healthcare students?
Yeah, I know with the healthcare, we had to defer to the clinical sites. So the clinical sites that were still allowing them, and the majority of them did not. And so, but they did reopen. And so what we did in the spring term was a lot of those experiential learning type of courses. We ended up, running incompletes for several of the classes. And then as the things opened back up, the clinicals opened back up and the people were back allowed in the sites. And we're currently running through those right now. But I think we do have to defer to the institutions where they're doing the internships or the co-ops and follow their protocols. But I think on our end as a college, we have to be flexible. So I think one of the kind of early on, one of the stances we took is, we're going to do everything we can do to ensure there's no harm to a student. So if there was a co-op or an internship that was required and it needed to get pushed out, then we would allow it to be pushed out, and we would adjust the term or use an incomplete process to allow that term to run longer. on those. But I don't know the individual companies' policies. Some companies shut down, some companies wouldn't allow people in unless they were essential workers. So we have to honor that.
Cool. Thanks, Dan.
I don't know if that really was a good answer, but that was kind of the approach we had to take, I guess.
I just kind of wanted to see what the thoughts and concerns were for that, if there was anybody else who was affected by something like that, or if it was just me.
No, I can tell you, it wasn't just you. I know, like our nursing students, that was a major, setback for them. They're planning, they were planning on, being done at the end of the spring term, graduating, and part of that included those clinicals. And I do know that the agencies and some of the credentialing places also give a little bit of reprieve in that. So in other words, they didn't get the clinical experience, but they still allowed them to get like a temporary credential type of thing, with the expectation that those clinicals would be made up over the next 6 months and type of stuff. So I think the key that we've been trying to really push is flexibility, and that's from our manufacturing sites, our clinical sites, the flexibility to work with the students as we get through this. So trying to honor everybody's, the companies and hospitals kind of protocols, trying to honor that at the same time, allowing flexibility in some of the certifications and type of stuff. But it was a very serious problem. It wasn't just you, Paige. It was a lot of students.
Well, I'm glad to hear it wasn't just me.
Nope, not at all.
So I have something real quick to say. Paige, you're not alone. My name's Adriana Lopez, and I am with Defiance County CCMEP program. And we actually had about 10 individuals signed up, ready to go. They actually did start a construction course. It was going to take about 10 weeks. And COVID happened. So it was, all right, we're on a pause. You guys, we'll contact you when this is pretty much over. We can get back together and you guys can finish to get your construction certificate. And we're now in June and we don't know like when we're going to get back to that. So you're not alone. Like I said, these 10 individuals were ready. They would have already been done by now. I think the last week was supposed to be like in May. So they would have had their certificate. They would have had other certificates along with this construction, and they would have been able to go look for a job. So like one of the problems that we're looking at now is these 10 individuals, they were taking this course so that, they could go get like a better job than what they were in now. But now it's like, well, they had to somehow go and make money. And so some of them have already went and got, they're employed at like Campbell's or a higher paying position. So now we're kind of looking at, well, are they going to be able to even come back when we do our construction classes again? So that was a big damp in our program when the COVID happened. So yeah, you're not alone, girl.
Thanks so much for sharing that. So we're down to about 3 minutes before we're done with this session. I would encourage you, if you haven't looked at the group chat, there's a lot of really good conversation that's going on over on that side. Just kind of some folks sharing experiences and things. Any last minute thoughts? I do have a question, but I just wanted to see, is there anything else? Are there any questions from you as students that you just would like an answer to, and we can kind of collect those. And I know we're doing more learner sessions over the next day and a half, and then maybe we can start to address those. But please, if there's something that you just didn't feel like you wanted to say it out loud, that's okay. But we really would like to hear your thoughts and ask those questions. Hey, what's the college doing about this? Whatever that might be. And then I was also asked, and I'm not sure exactly how we're going to be able to do this, but let's just trying to take a quick little straw poll. Do you guys all know how to use the reaction functions like the thumbs up or whatever? So if you could, I'm going to ask you a question, and then for those of you to respond, and we'll try to count them. How many learners use email as their primary source of getting information from your respective institutions? Give a thumbs up or the applause or whatever. Email is what you go to find out the information. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6-ish, 7-ish maybe. Okay, this whole second page looks like it's all employees almost. So, all right, cool. That's a good number. And then I guess we'll just talk like social media, Facebook. How many of you look at the school's Facebook for updates? Okay. I see 0 thumbs. I see 1 thumb. Okay. Maybe a couple, 2 or 3 thumbs. And some of you also said thumbs up to email. So those are, and
I want to ask one question, just in general to think about. How many of you, when we did go, and not just when we went remote, but before in online classes, how many of you, when taking a remote or online class, are interacting with other people in those classes, other students, your peers, not faculty, not staff? How many of you are talking and working with other peers?
Good. Yeah. Cool.
Sweet.
A good amount.
Honestly,
yeah.
Honestly, that was one of the better sides of that. Those of my friends that were in my class that actually responded to my messages. That was great.
And how did you guys? What tools did you use to communicate?
I had some people that I talked to on Discord. I had some people that I talked to on Slack. I had some people that I talked to via Google Chat group. And sometimes it was just through the Zoom meetings that we had. We used the chat, or we could just like, hey, let's talk about this after the Zoom meeting.
Anybody else?
We did Slack. We communicated everything through Slack. And honestly, I mean, that was the main way of me knowing. I would check my email every now and again whenever my phone would buzz. I did have to check my email for one class. That was the only class that I actually had to go on. But for the most part, all my classes were communicated via Slack, via that kind of social media, not necessarily through the school. But and I'm going to agree with Hunter, is if you had that online class and you at least know one other person in that class, it really helps, because they're kind of like that, hey, I know you, I know it's an online class, but can you help me? So.
Thank you, KJ. Jacobs.
Yo.
That was amazing.
Ha.
I think from the conversations in the Zoom, conversations over in the group chat, I mean, yes. It's interesting though, right? Like how the students don't want to talk up in front, but then once you get them talking, how they just won't get that.
Yeah, it was
they'll keep going, right?
It was about 20 solid minutes of 5 or 6 of you, and it was nice because I didn't have to say anything.